Hi everyone, my name is Shazia Khan, and today's unit that we'll be doing is Unit 3, which is Human Resource Management. And firstly, I'm going to go through the unit spec so you've got a little bit of an idea what the unit is about. So the unit we're doing is Human Resource Management. The code is J6185035 and it's a Unit 4 module unit. So the introduction to the unit is people are lifeblood of an organisation, and the ability to attract, recruit and retain talented staff is critical to the success of any organisation, whether in business, in voluntary organisations or in government. So human resource management provides organisations with principles, knowledge and behaviours to focus people management activities on supporting, enhancing any sort of organisational success and performance. So the unit that we'll be doing, there's 4 learning outcomes to the unit and 1 assignment discussion. So there's 5 sessions that will be the unit. The unit will give you the knowledge and skills associated with human resources, occupational roles as at a generalist level, for example, HR assistant or HR advisor or partner, to a more specialist role in as recruitment, talent acquisition, performance and reward management. Students will explore the nature of HRM and the organisational context of people management, including things like retention, recruitment, training, reward systems, employment relations, and associated legislative frameworks. The aim of the unit is to enable students to understand and apply the principles of effective HRM in order to enhance sustainable organisational performance and contribute to organisational success, holding business outcomes and people outcomes in equal balance. Students will apply HR practices in a work-related context, utilising their knowledge and practicing skills and behaviours in relevant professional areas, including resources, talent planning, recruitment, learning, and development of employee engagement. On completion of the unit, students will be able to understand the purpose and scope of HRM activities. They will also be able to apply a range of people management skills to the performance of an organisation by finding solutions to people-related problems. So the learning outcomes we're doing are the first one, learning outcome today, which we'll be doing today, is explaining the impact and the role of HRM in creating sustainable organisational performance and contributing to business success. The second learning outcome is to assess the contribution of HRM in recruiting and retaining talent and skills to achieve business objectives. And thirdly, learning outcome 3, which is to examine how external and internal factors can affect HRM decision-making in relation to organisational development. And then learning outcome 4, the final one, apply HRM practices in a work-related context for improving sustainable organisational performance. So below is all the elements of what we'll be discussing in each learning outcome. So the first one, we'll be going through elements of learning outcome 1. So we'll be looking at definitions of HRM, the different specialist HRM resources, employee relations, organisational development, design and learning, generic HR competencies, so design of people strategies, creating people management, policies, employee engagement, supporting organisational change, typical roles in HR and responsibilities, so HR advisors, HR officers, specific skills, communication skills, adaptability, looking at working in an ethical framework with recognised best practice. We'll also look at the strategic HRM and the organisational performance in learning outcome 1. Then we go on to learning outcome 2, which is looking at the resourcing the organisation. So here we'll be looking at workforce planning and application of data analyticals, assessing skills and capabilities, using audits and gap analysis for identifying talent and skills gap, looking at the elements of an end-to-end roadmap. What's the plan, direction, skills, needs, skill gaps and solutions. We'll also look at the workforce trends, including flexible working arrangements, remote working, virtual meetings, social distancing, addressing diversity and inclusion, types of labour market and skill shortages, for example, lack of digital skills, leadership skills, analytical skills, and the impact of relevant legislation, including data protection. We'll also look at recruitment and selection, so the different models of recruitment and selection, sources of recruitment versus internal versus external, achieving cultural diversity in recruitment, stages in recruitment and selection process, different types of selection methods, and legal frameworks and regulatory standards. Look at retention in the form of the role of managers, managing attrition, dealing with employee disciplinaries, factors influencing retention. Then we'll go on to learning outcome 3, which looks at how external internal factors can influence HRM decisions. We look at external and internal factors, so the skills gap, the external factors outside, impact of globalization on HR, impact of legal regulatory frameworks. Internal factors include the impact and influence of leadership styles on organizational transformation. We look at learning and development. We look at the relationship between organizational culture and strategic planning and development. We look at the impact of motivation upon performance. We'll also look at organizational development, which is the changing work environment, need for flexible organization, characteristics of agile organization, and digital transformation of HR functions. Then we go on to the final learning outcome, which is to apply HRM practices in work-related contexts for improving sustainable organizational performance. Here we look at job descriptions and person specifications, so referencing workforce planning, assessing the need to create and fill a post, preparing different types of job description, including competence-based and task-based, identifying the qualities and attributes relevant to the design of a person specification, designing a person specification. We look at recruitment and selection in practice, so designing and placing job advertisement, shortlisting and processing applications, interviewing preparation and best practice, selection best practice. We also look at performance management, which is aligned to work planning, methods of financial and non-financial rewards. We look at staff development, continuous professional development and training, providing support and maintaining well-being. We look at embedding learning and reflective practice. We'll also look at managing underperformance, disciplinary, industrial disputes, and grievous procedures, and succession planning. In learning outcome 3, we'll also look at the employment relationship, the psychological contract, and the employee voice and engagement. We'll also look at managing performance to attain competitive advantage, increase job satisfaction. So the learning outcomes and assessment criteria, and these are for this unit, you can get a pass, merit, or distinction depending on which which part of the assignment you wish to complete. So learning outcome 1, the pass ones are on the pass, and the merit ones, there's 2 and 1 distinction 1. Learning outcome 2, there's 1 pass and 1 merit. Learning outcome 3, there's 1 pass, 1 merit and 1 distinction. And finally, for learning outcome 4, there's 1 pass, 1 merit and 1 distinction. And that is the criteria, the mark. Is Keith on? Hi, Keith. Can you hear me? Hi, Keith. Can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you.
Yeah, I was just going through the learning outcomes because I started the session. So I'll just reiterate the learning outcomes to you, and then we can go through them each week. Okay, so you've got a better idea. So the unit that you'll be doing, Keith, my name is Shazia Khan. So if this is all recorded, so you can go back onto it when it goes on to Moodle. So my name is Shazia Khan, and I'll be teaching you the Human Resource Management unit. So there's 4 learning outcomes that we're going to go through. So the first one is to explain the impact and the role of HRM in creating sustainable organizational performance and contributing to business success. The second one we'll be looking at is assessing the contribution of HRM in recruiting and retaining talent and skills to achieve business objectives. And the third one is to examine how external and internal factors affect HRM. And then the fourth one is apply HRM practices in a work-related context for improving sustainable organisation performance. So this is the module specification, and this is available on Moodle for you. I've gone through all of this in regards to on the recording just before you came, because it started at 9 o'clock. So the one we'll be doing today is learning outcome 1. So there's 4 learning outcomes and an assignment discussion. So we've got 5 sessions. So is that okay, Keith?
That's okay.
Have you got any questions up till now? So this is all available on Moodle for you, okay? And it shows you how the assignment is dealt with as well. But what we'll do is there's some recommended text there as well. But each session we do, we'll give you the recommended text at the end of each session, okay? What I
Okay.
do want to just show you briefly is it's not the assignment discussion session, but it's just the assignment, how it looks on Moodle so that you can get access to that. So this is the assignment on Moodle, okay? And it will go, I'm not going to go through it yet because we have a session where we go through it in more detail towards the end. So there are the assignment activities there, the scenario there, and what you are expected to do. So you are expected to produce certain things in each part of the assignment, which we'll go through more in detail towards the end, okay? So what I'm going to start with now is learning outcome 1. Have you got any questions before we start, Keith?
No question.
Okay, excellent. If you have any questions throughout, just ask, okay?
Okay.
So the first learning outcome that we'll be doing today is explaining how the purpose and scope of human resource management in terms of resources and organisation with talent and skills appropriate to fulfil a business objectives. So the aim of the unit is to enable students to appreciate and apply principles of effective human resource management. People are the lifeblood of any organisation, and being able to attract, recruit and retain talented staff is the core of any HRM activity. The unit will explore the tools, techniques used in HRM to maximise employee contribution and how to use HR models, and the students will explore the importance of training and development. The unit also looks at the importance of good employees relations and the ways in which employees engage with their staff, and also looks at the element of understanding of the law that governs HRM. So the self-assessment on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate yourself in the knowledge of HRM? Do you have a lot of knowledge?
Not that much. I will give myself a 5.
You give yourself a 5. Okay, so it's one of these things where you will learn more throughout, and you will have access to additional resources online as well, okay? So the indicative content definition, we're going to look at definition of HRM. What are the main functions? And best practice, the hard and soft models of HRM. Look at the labour market. We're going to look at the impact of regulatory frameworks, the impact of technology, and look at recruitment sources, so recruitment, internal and external, job descriptions, onboard and induction. So we cover a lot of elements in the first indicative content. Okay, so when we talk about HRM, what is the first thing that comes to mind for you, Keith?
The hiring of people.
Yeah, the hiring of people. Yeah, that's the main thing that comes to mind with everyone. Okay, so it is the HR sorry, is about people, money and material. So recruiting people, it's a department of a big organization that manages the employer life cycle. So it looks at the elements of effective human resource department managing its workforce, organizational policies. It complies with labor laws because laws are in place that need to be complied with. So any sort of laws that are in place that protect the rights of individuals and employees, the HR will deal with them. Okay, so human resource management is quite an important part of any organization because it performs a wide range of different activities, such as looking at employee satisfaction, engagement, performance. It looks at the workforce culture. It looks at a lot of things, and obviously this department has to comply with legal regulations, like things like new ones, flexible working hours and things like that, and any sort of conflicts with the employee and the employer. So the human resource management is obviously a process of planning, attracting, and getting employees together. It's often referred to simply as HR in any organization. It's therefore hiring, firing, deploying, and managing an employee's organization, to make sure that they are putting and overseeing any sort of workers and relationship with its employees. Do you think a human resource management department, having human resource management within any organization is really important, Keith?
That is really important
Why do you think it's so important? It is important, you are right. But why
because
do you
it
think
improves
it's important?
it improves the work relationship within the employees and the employees and the employer.
Yeah, it builds that relationship, doesn't it? And it's there
Yeah.
to make sure that people are protected. It manages planning, organization, directing, and controlling any employees. If there's any issues around industrial relations or any issues around pay, it is there to help the organization and the employee. So human resource management is really important in regard to element of any organization. So it's to do with planning, controlling, and helps managers recruit, train, and develop members for an organization. So it's really important in regards to, trying to control people and trying to get new employees. So it follows this approach that that they must employ people in regards to they must recruit them, they must train them and develop members. Recruiting and training is part of the HR department. And why do you think training is so important in regards to if you were working for an organization, Keith, why do you think training is so important when it comes to human resources? Do you think it increases your skills if you have by the HR department, if you have the training, do you think it increases your skills? Oh. Okay, so when you have a HR department in place, it improves your skills, it helps you recruit and develop. Approaches to HRM. What are the different approaches to HRM? So HRM reflects on the different approaches used, and it's important that there are approaches in place for HRM. And if a company is about goal setting, then HRM will set goals to give bonuses. It may be incentives they give. They may give you, the issue around, any sort of bonuses in regards to vouchers. And it can either take the form of hard uh, or soft form, depending on what each one is. And we're going to go through each one so you've got a better idea. So hard HRM is the first one we'll look at, which is element of you'll have the soft and hard HRM. The hard, excuse me, the difference between the both is that hard HRM focus on things like micromanaging workforce and dictating what they want you to do, whereas soft focuses on employer empowerment to drive engage and revenue growth. Which one do you think works well, the hard one or the soft one, Keith? So if your hard one
Mm,
focuses on micromanaging workforce and
mhm.
dictating everything they do, soft one is employer empowerment. Which one do you think works best within an organization?
Soft HRM.
Yeah, soft one, yeah. Soft one. So as the hard one is employee as a cost, market issues, compliance control, quantitative, whereas the soft one is employee is a resource and people issues, So, people in the soft one, there's two contrasting models, but different organizations will use different models and which helps that organization. Human resource management, so you have HR planning, strategic job planning, job design, then you have attracting employees, which is recruiting and selecting. So these are their duties. Employing, developing employees, so training and development, and retaining employees, so compensation, maintenance, labor relations, and separation. But the training and development is really important part of any sort of organization, as in all the other ones. So here you've got a case study, rent a car, which is on Moodle. You can have a look at in your own time. We've got a video there that you can look at in your own time on the human resource management. And then some objectives of HR. So what they are there to do, they're mainly there to manage employees. Their main objective is to manage employees and recognize what their needs are as well, and within a working culture. They also include things like ensuring optimum use of existing HR. They also deal with things like, if they've got a shortage in a workforce, how they downsize. Also things like recruitment and selection, training and development, the costing needs of employees. If there's an organization that wants you to work abroad, they have to take into account your housing needs as well. And they would look at the needs of expansion and diversification programs for you, maintaining this company culture as well, maintaining employees' benefits, creating a safe environment as well. HR's responsible and their objectives are part of that. HR environment, external factors that influence HR environment. So it's really important there, external factors, and that influence HRM either directly or indirectly. These factors can be broadly categorized, and you can have things like, it could be technology that has an impact externally. It could be economic. It could be political and legal stuff. What could be a legal part of it? Could it be new laws that have come into place? Do you think that would have an impact on it, Keith? If new laws
Sorry.
came into place?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so if new laws came into place, like, it may be like we've got laws in place for equal pay, age discrimination, these kind of things would impact on HRM. The new law saying now that you've got flexible working hours and things like that, they have a huge impact on employees and employers. HRM external factors, the union, social and cultural factors, and it could be, social cultural factors could be in which a business operates with an important influence on human resource. It could be things like work ethic. It could be things like attitudes towards work, employee motivation. If you are giving monetary rewards as well, if you do well in the week, they may give you more money, or they may give you an incentive as a bonus. And professionalism is another really important element as well. Make sure that that's one of the external factors as well. So with the external factors, there's also internal factors such as policies, organizational conflict, and missions that need to be taken into place. Why should we, in any organization, why is it important to follow internal influences? Things like, why is it important to know about new IT skills? Why must we follow policies? Because it's part of the law, we need to follow them. There's, changes like new product development, things like that. So there are internal factors that may influence HRM as well. Importance of HRP, why do you think it's so important? It ensures that the organization has the right number of people with the right number of skills and in right places at the right time. So future personnel needs, it creates this high talented personnel. So there's talents within that organization. International strategies, so it makes sure that, there's elements of international, if someone is coming and working with you from an international country, then there are strategies in place. It could be foundation of personnel function, and it could be the resistance to change and move. Some people are resistant to change and any sort of move that they need to make. So, it needs to align with that. Factors affecting HRP. So things like it could be government policies. It could be something organizational growth and planning. The organization has grown. It could be environmental uncertainties. It could be strategy of organization or outsourcing. And it could be government policies, that we introduce new policies in regards to employee satisfaction and things like that. It could be technological changes as well that impact it. And it could be company policies and the need for like certain changes that need to be made. So these kind of things play a big role within an organization. So, a human resource planning needs to be put into place if new laws have come about or any sort of, governmental changes that have come about. So HRP factors affecting HRP. So it could be things like, the element of organizational growth and planning. So the organization is growing and there's more need for more employees. And when this organization enters this growth stage, it's quite critical for the organization because they need to take into account, elements of how they have to have flexibility, assessing any sort of organizational goals and plans that need to be put in place. These are elements that need to be planned ahead so that if any, if there's any elements of growth and planning, how they would be dealt with. Environmental uncertainties, what we looked at, political issues, it could be technological issues, it could be, changes to HR that may affect the uncertainty. It can result in recruitment, training, succession, planning, and retention. So there are different changes that influence it. Factors affecting it, and here we've got, in the diagram it says internal growth. So that could be inside the organization. Narrow, informal, reactive, or inflexible. Then growth through mergers could be too broad. It could be too formal. It could be proactive or flexible. So these are the factors that affect HRP. Outsourcing. So most organizations have surplus labor and they do not want to worsen the problem by hiring more people. So outsourcing is the option that's left for them. HRP process. So they have a process in place which requires planning. And it's really important that the HRP has to follow this process and it has to fit in. Ensures that the best fit between employees and jobs and avoid any sort of manpower shortages or surpluses. So they have the environment, they have the organization objective and policies, they have HRA, HR supply focus, and then they have the HR need focus. And that goes on to HR programming, HRP implementing, control and evaluation, surplus and shortage. Why do you think it's so important to have a HRP process in place? Does it affect the organization?
I think it
Yeah.
does.
Why do you think it does?
Um,
We have these external factors, don't we? We have environmental, technology. And why do you think these factors affect the HR process quite a lot? So if you had to hire someone,
uh,
Keith,
okay,
for
so
a
it's
job, and he had to use computers, and if he didn't know how to use computers, would he be suitable for that job?
No.
No. So there's technological changes, there's demographic changes, there's economic factors, it may be the fact that this person can't work, because they've got, children. It might be demographic changes. It might be political and legislative changes or social changes. Political and legislative changes, if government want to change something, they would, follow the route of, bringing new laws in. And when a new law is being brought in, as an organization, must we follow that law, Keith?
Yeah, we must.
Yeah, we must follow the law. If the law says that, you have to work 25 hours a week, we must follow that law. If that law says that we must, we must, give men more paternity leave and, the same as women, we must follow that law, okay? The laws are in place to follow. And each country has different legislation. So the HR demand focus, so the process of estimating the future quantity and quality of people is required. The basis of forecast will be annual budget. Demand focus, so budget constraints, employee separations, productivity levels as well. That's really important. Demand forecasting techniques are things like managerial judgment, ratio trend analysis, Delphi technique, regression analysis. These all need to be taken in account when you're looking at a HRP process. HR supply forecasting, supply to forecasting the number of people available from inside and outside the organization. HR programming, another important part of the element of the HR process, and this is things like firing and hiring, training, supporting new employees. This is the HRP process that needs to be taken into account. And it's the process, the HRP process is the element of, utilization and implementing planning in place. And if there's any vacancies that can be filled, there is a planning to implementation as well, which is the process of transitioning from one HR platform to another. So making sure that, you have got a system in place. So, you need to make sure that you are implementing that plan. And it requires converting an HR plan into action. So making sure that, you are looking at the recruitment and selection, the training and the succession plan. HR planning. So when we look at HR planning, why do you think HR planning is important?
Because to keep the business going properly.
Yeah, to make sure there's a continuous process of planning to achieve the making sure that the use of any organization to achieve employee optimism. So making sure that it identifies any sort of current and future resources needed for the organization and making sure that they achieve the goal. So making sure that anyone that is needed for the organization, plans need to be put in place. So job analysis is identifying your skills, knowledge and abilities for the job. So any sort of job analysis is done so that you are able to identify what employers need, what skills they need, what knowledge they need. And these are important elements for job analysis. Then we've got job evaluation, and this is making sure that the job analysis determine the value of each job in relation to all jobs. So job evaluation has four basic approaches. First, the ranking method. Secondly, the classification model. Thirdly, the fact or comparison model, and then the point method needed. So these are elements that are needed when planning for HR. Job enlargement is categorized by horizontal job loading, which means more tasks of different nature to a job. So job enlargement is done to create a variety of jobs for one person. Job enrichment is categorized by vertical job loading, which means adding duties and responsibilities of a job to provide variety of skills, autonomy. So making sure that the person that's doing that job has more skills and is attracted more to that job. Job rotation is achieved by moving employers working on a routine and repetitive job from one position to another. It may be someone who's got promotion. It may be someone that's moved to a different department. Trying to rotate their job is to minimize any sort of elements of, if the person's getting bored of that job, try to move them around. And then we've got worker traits. This means that characteristic of worker traits vary from job to job, but in general, a worker must be punctual, honest, and of good behaviour. Recruitment and selection are really important element of recruiting employees, and there are two different stages in the hiring process. So, recruitment involves getting the job description, and then selection is narrowing it down. So making sure that, the process is dealt with fairly and also followed as well. And this is really important part of any company or organization's long-term success and growth. Companies spend a lot of money on recruitment and selection processes. Why do you think this is a really important part of any company or organization, the recruitment and selection process?
They need to increase the workflow.
Why do you think recruitment and selection is really important for any organization?
To maximize some productivity.
Yeah, but also, does it look at who the people they recruit for the job? Are they right for the job? Looking at prospective employees, whether they're right for the job, whether they fit the, the person's specification. So when we look at recruitment, that involves identifying, attracting, and encouraging potential candidates to apply for job vacancies within an organization. And it involves creating an awareness about the opportunities and establishing a pool of qualified applicants. Whereas selection is the systematic process of choosing the most suitable candidate from that recruitment pool through a various set of interviews. It might be, that they have to do assessment interviews, and we're going to go through that a little bit more. It might be that they have to have a certain requirement, certain characteristics to do that. So the purpose and importance of recruitment. So why is recruitment so important for any organization? You need to make sure that, firstly, recruitment is the positive process of identifying, analyzing, and establishing the potential prospective prospective employer to match the organization's work and culture. And it's really important when we look at recruitment because it increases your pool of candidates. So you may want a big pool of candidates, and then you're going to look at making sure that you've got that pool of candidates. So if one candidate is off, then you are able to get another candidate. Okay, so it's multi-dimensional. So it may be that you may be acquiring new talent or enabling business continuity. You cannot undermine the importance of an effective recruitment process. It's so important, the recruitment process, to get the right person for the job. Sources of recruitment. So there are different sources of recruitment. So, the best source of recruitment, you can have employees, that refer people. You may have a friend, Keith. You may think, that I want this friend to work here. So, you recommend that person. There's internal and external sources of recruitment, and each has its own benefits. It could be things like promotion. If you're promoting current employees to another job, a higher level job, it could be transfers from different companies who are moving around. It could be employer referrals. It could be, internal job posts, people apply internally for the job. External things could be like things like job boards and online platforms. That's quite a big thing, like LinkedIn. That's quite a big thing that people use for job recruitment now as well. LinkedIn's quite popular. It could be things like recruitment agencies, who come in handy for areas where, your job description may fill. these agencies have a pool of people, and then they will refer to you for the job. It could be campus recruitment, social media. Social media is a big thing at the moment for job recruitments. Why do you think it's such a big thing, Keith, social media?
Because it catches a lot of people.
Yeah. A lot of people use social media, such as it could be things like Facebook, it could be Instagram, Twitter, and they are popular for recruiting and engaging different people from different audiences. So it may be younger people, it may be older people, but it's a way of, advertising your job. And it's quite an increase in social media now. Uh, it may be that different sources you may be headhunted. You may be so good that you may be headhunted by someone for the job, so that is another form of recruitment. It's really important when it comes to looking at the different sources of recruitment, how someone is employed and how they've gone for the job. So the recruitment process, okay, so it's an element of, how the recruitment process, how we deal with the recruitment process and why it's so important. So recruiting someone is really important anywhere, and the recruitment process is a complex process that helps any sort of employers find that candidate to hire for the organization. And it's not something that, I apply for or you apply for and we both go for the job, but there has to be a process in place. Why is it important to have a process in place?
Uh, to ensure that you employ the right person.
Yes, to ensure that you employ the right person and you follow the structure as well. We can't, Keith, you can't just recommend a friend and you tell me, oh, you have to employ this friend. There has to still be a process in place to see whether the person meets the job description or the person, is fit for the job. So recruitment requires attracting, interviewing, selecting, hiring and outboarding new employees. So first is the recruiting required personnel. So you need to identify the vacancy. First step is identify what the vacancy is, and then make that the company makes during recruitment. So more vacancies you need to identify. You need to make sure if you need this person, you need to make sure you're recruiting required personnel, so there's a need for them. Search for prospective students. So also planning is really important as well. Planning and choosing a strategy that works for that company to make sure you fill that role as well and what kind of individual you want. Search for prospective students after identifying your vacancy and planning the strategy that best works for your organization and the candidate, the recruiter there will advertise the job, okay? And there will be internal recruitment and external recruitment, as we looked at a little bit earlier. So internal recruitment involves advertising the job via the company's internal communication channels, and that can be things such as, newsletters. Employers may choose to prioritize their existing employers because they're familiar with the company's culture and may require less time during the onboarding stage. Okay, then we have external sources, and these are recruiters can also actively look for suitable candidates and reach out to them via social media, like we mentioned. It could be via agencies, like you may have Indeed, you may have Staffline. These can advertise the jobs for you, and they have a pool of people, and this allows the recruiter to, look for people that are outside the organization rather than bringing people from the internal organization. So what the organization wants to look for is bring new dynamic people into the organization. Then you look at evaluating the effectiveness of the process. So here you will then select the candidates and screen them. So you will look at their CVs and any covering letters and make sure that they meet the person's specification. Then you have the hiring and onboarding. So after deciding the successful candidate, you will have a job, you can hire the candidate, onboarding, and then you will evaluate the process. So evaluating the process, the last stage is it can implement. Recruiting is the process you can collect and review data involving the recruiting results here. So consider reviewing and evaluating the process here towards the end. It's a crucial part to evaluate the completed process because the company's HR department can use it to plan and design and implement other recruitment efforts in the future and increase the quality of organizations' hiring standards. So making sure that they are following that process quite rigidly. So the recruitment process we went through a little bit. So personal requisition, recruitment from other departments, locating and development sources of required and type of employees, identifying the prospective employees, with required characteristics and skills, communicating the information to the organization, encouraging and identifying, applying for jobs and evaluating the effectiveness, as we've talked about. The selection process. So the selection process is can be described as the procedure of identifying and shortlisting qualified people with the qualifications and skills for the vacancy of the company. And this selection process differs from different industry to different industry, even if it's in different departments. So it all differs. And this is where they will pick the individual out of the pool of applicants. So, who actually fit the person's specification. The selection procedure, so you have a preliminary interview, you will have application blank, and you would then have the selection test, employment interview, the references and background checks, medical examination in some instances, at the final approval and the evaluation. So this process starts, it's really important that this process is used for different organizations. Some organizations use it differently, others will use it differently, depend on what process is good for their organization and why they use that process. So, not every organization will screen employees or pre-select them. Some organization will have tests, others will have tests as well, assessment tests, which we'll go through a little bit in a minute, okay? So test and interview. So why is it important to have tests and interviews in place? Why do you think they test and interview in the HRM process? Why do you think they go through testing, aptitude tests or anything like that?
And ensure they're knowledgeable about the job they're doing.
Yes. Make sure they're knowledgeable about their job. So screening involves the initial assessment of candidates and resumes applications to make sure, like you said, they are suitable for that job, that they've got the specific skills, like they say. So you've got informal interviews. Informal interviews are a beneficial way to meet an employer to discuss what value and skills they can bring to the organization. And this interview occurs outside the workplace, often in a more casual setting, not a formal setting, to allow the employer to learn your natural characteristics and communication skills. Then we have more of a formal interview, and formal interview is more traditional approach, in-person interviews. Employers typically use a predetermined questions and do not stray away from them. So they're more formal. It's a formal structure between an interviewer and a candidate for a job. So would it just be one interviewer, or could it be more interviewers? Could it be a panel of interviewers, Keith? Could it just, is it normally just one interviewer, or could it be more than one interviewer?
Be more than one interviewer.
Yeah, it could be a panel of interviewers. And, the whole point of a formal interview is to evaluate whether the candidate is suitable for the position and to learn more about the skills and qualifications. Then you have a depth interview, which is an in-depth interview and is open-ended. So it's discovery-oriented method to obtain detailed information about a topic from a stakeholder. That's in-depth interview. Then you have a stress interview, which is a path used to put applicants under immense tension. And they are intended, these stress interviews, to test the capacity to think directly on your feet. So react proficiently and in troublesome circumstances, remain quiet in a pressurized domain. So these are interviews that are put in place. So we've got, induction or orientation. And induction is the process of introducing new employees to the company, its culture, policies and procedures. Why do you think inductions are so important for new applicants?
Familiar
Sorry, what's that?
space they're going into.
Yeah. So it's really important for the organization to have inductions in place. The next one is orientation. It's also called induction, and it's the process of providing new employees with information about the company, its products, services, and the job they will be performing. So it makes them feel comfortable in the job, that they are able to, be more effective in the job role that they've been given. Advantages of formal induction. So formal induction is really important, in regards to elements of, reduces employee turnover, helps build this two-way communication between management and its workers. Inductions facilitate informal relations and teamwork amongst employers. It improves employee retention. It improves productivity as well between the employers, and they understand their respective roles. It enhances this reputation as well. Effective induction helps to integrate the new employees into the organization and develop a sense of belonging. There's an activity there for you on tutor dot 2u.net, and it's an activity on recruitment and selection. Policy goals of HRM. So there are different policy goals of HRM. The main goals are, that they set the HRM policies that are put in place are there to set rules designed to organize the management of companies' human resource management. It covers all areas related to human resources, which are work, organization, recruitment, compensation, training, dismissal, etc. High commitment behavior, commitment to agreed goals. So if there's goals in place, make sure that they align with the goals as well. High quality, this refers to all aspects of managerial behavior. Make sure that, the quality of goods and services provided, including the management of high quality. And flexibility as well. This is really important. Functional flexibility, making sure that you are adapting to the structure of the organization, making sure that, you are following the policies and procedures in place that are set up by the HR department. There are formal policies and guidelines that businesses need to follow within their HR procedures, things like, making sure they're following the procedures that are in place for hiring people, making sure that they're following procedures in place for recruitment, selection, and they are so important because if for certain, it's a part of a legal protection for your organization, making sure you follow the HR policies. Keith, why do you think if an organization doesn't follow these HR policies, what do you think would happen with this organization?
It will be, how do I say it? Uh,
Do,
okay.
do you think that if it doesn't follow these policies, do you think there's more people that will take legal action against that organization?
Yes.
Yeah. So it could be, that they've been discriminated against, but if the organization you work for doesn't have policies in place, then it's not going to help that individual, is it? So, they need to follow a code of conduct. They need to follow, policies that have been put in place. And it could be things like health and safety policies. It could be working condition policies. It could be things like, benefits and compensation, leave policy. These are examples of some policies that HR department needs to follow to make sure it meets the requirements. So preliminary further reading for you to go. So we finished learning outcome 1 now. Okay. Have you got any questions on learning outcome 1?
No
Are you
question.
sure? So what we've done in learning outcome, I'll just give you a recap of what we've done in today's session. We've looked at explaining the purpose and scope of human resource management in terms of resourcing, organization with talent and skills appropriate for business. We looked at elements of scope of what HRM is. So we defined what that was. We looked at the functions and activities of HRM. We looked at the element of best practice. We looked at the impact of legal and regulatory framework. We looked at elements of approaches to HRM. So we looked at the hard HRM and soft HRM. We looked at human resource management. We looked at the objectives of HRP. We also looked at elements of external and internal factors that influence HRM environment. Factors affecting HRP. We also looked at the HRM process, and we looked at HRM planning in elements of job analysis, job evaluation, working traits. We looked at recruitment and selection process, the purpose of it and the importance of that, why it's so important, the recruitment and selection process, induction, advantages of formal induction, and we looked at the element of the different test and interview, so formal, informal, depth and stress. And we looked at elements of policy goals and why they're so important within HRM. So we've finished learning outcome 1 now. There's some further reading, additional reading for you to do on chapter 1 from Armstrong Essential Human Resource Management Practice. And these, there may be ebooks available for you on Moodle that you can refer to. Have you got any questions before we finish off the session today, Keith?
No question.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or queries you have, Keith, you need to email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Submission of the assignment is to be done on learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk, and this is after 2 weeks of completion of the units. So once we've done the assignment discussion session in the 5th session, then you would be able to start on your assignment. We have got the next session tomorrow morning, which is at 9 o'clock. These are some of the references we've used for today's session that you can refer to if you need any sort of resources that you want to read around. The next session we've got is tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, which is learning outcome 2. Okay, so I will see you in tomorrow's session, and then we'll discuss what we'll do in tomorrow's learning outcome 2 session. Thank you for attending.
Okay,
Keith,
I have one question.
yes, you have a question. Yeah, go on.
This unit I'm doing is not in I can't see it in the module.
Sorry?
The HR, this unit you're doing right now,
Yeah.
I can't see it in the module.
You can't see it as a unit?
Yeah.
You can't what, sorry? Hello, Keith?
Oh, I'm saying
Yeah.
I can't see the unit in the module.
In the Moodle? Are you supposed to do this unit, Keith?
Yeah, I've tried complaining. Even the last unit it wasn't in the module, and they haven't done anything.
So are you saying you can't see this in the course?
No, it's not there.
So, Keith, I'll speak to the office and I'll get them to email you. Is
Okay.
that okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this recording, all these recordings will available on Moodle for you, okay, Keith?
Okay,
Nice
okay.
to meet you today, Keith, and I'll see you tomorrow, okay?
So,
Take care. Bye.
okay, bye.
Bye.